We're going to have Jim Ross on the line in just a couple of minutes, and we'll start taking phone calls. We'll go through as many emails as we can. We probably have enough emails to go through about 3 shows, I think, for Jim Ross. Brian, I was going to ask you a question here. I spent like all day the last couple days like figuring out like awards and things like that. And next Friday, which we don't have a guest next Friday, we should do the award show. We'll go through all the Wrestling Observer awards. So we'll do that a week from today. But this will give away the result of one of the awards, I guess. It is the first time in history that the winner of the Rookie of the Year award was fired by the company before the year was over.
Oh, no.
So anyway, yeah, can you believe that?
How about that?
How about that? Not only that, he probably had the best match you've seen in how many years? Right, live?
Live?
Yeah.
Maybe ever.
Oh my God. Brian, what else I've been like, let's see, what else has been going on? Anything else big going on today?
Well, there was a big article in the newspaper about Steve Austin getting his surgery moved to January 17th. It'll be at the Methodist Hospital in San Antonio with Dr. Lloyd Youngblood. And apparently it was a case of the hospital being closer to his house, and he didn't want to have to fly all the way out to Dr. Bullman to get checkups and everything like that. And I would assume, after the surgery was over, trying to get back to San Antonio and that sort of thing. So anyway, it has been moved. It'll be January 17th. And I believe there was also a quote from Dr. Bullman wondering why Austin had changed the date of the surgery, since he was the man who invented the procedure.
That's really interesting because, Dr. Bullman had come so heavily recommended by Dr. Torg, and the procedure, like he invented the procedure, and he was the one. The whole thing is he wanted to get back like Cal Ripken. Anyway, when Jim Ross is here, we should talk to him about that one. That's kind of an interesting thing. I had heard that report.
And also yesterday, actually, speaking of the San Antonio area, Cameron Cade Hickenbottom was born, Shawn Michaels' son. So. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, okay. Now get him back to work.
Yeah. Okay. He was born yesterday. That one I didn't hear. Oh. Anything else going on? We can start hitting emails before we get
Actually, here's the one to ask Jim Ross, because it was in his Ross report that just came out today.
Oh, the Terry Funk thing?
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah,
Terry Funk still under contract to the World Wrestling Federation. Yeah,
we've gotten like 400 emails on that one, so we'll talk. Actually, that'll be like one of the first questions we talk to him about when we get him on. Also, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, I believe today, did a story that's it was the first I read was in the Pro Wrestling Torch about a week ago about the WWF's television contracts revolving UPN and also USA Network, and we want to get some comments on that as well because I don't know, just kind of interesting. SmackDown is generally credited in the media for saving UPN from basically going out of extinction and being buried under a sea of incredible red ink. And if that was the case, and UPN had given the WWF this network deal and everything like that, wouldn't you think they would retain an option to not lose it if the show was a hit?
I would think so.
I mean, I don't know. I would just think that. So anyway, it's something that...
Maybe they were so desperate they just gave the WWF anything they wanted.
Perhaps. That's really interesting, though. Anyway, let's get to some emails for the next few minutes. This is from Andrew Martelli, who said that you mentioned that Vader's the best worker of over 300 pounds. That's true, but I think a close second goes to Glenn Jacobs. After all his cheesy gimmicks, he only found the right one, but now the WWF's killing his gimmick. Okay, I think Kane has improved a lot. I mean, really, and his matches are a lot better than they were a year ago. But I don't know if it's close second between Kane and Bruiser Brody. I don't think he's in that league, personally. This is from Ben Lidd. If the Brawl for All was to set up Steve Williams to walk away, then how can you explain Dan Severn being in the tournament? I don't know. How would you explain that one?
I don't think that... Well, that's a good question, actually, because...
It's a real good question, isn't it?
Maybe because, Dan Severn, of course, would just take everybody down, and takedowns were, like 5 points or something?
Yeah. I think that the feeling probably was... Because, originally they didn't want Dan Severn or Ken Shamrock in it, okay? Then about a week or two in, some of the guys started dropping out. I'm not sure exactly what went down. And then they asked Shamrock and Severn to do it, and Shamrock said no. He didn't want to just go in there with no training, and do a shoot. And Severn said yes. And then Severn did one match with the Godfather where he took him down, which was... Actually, that match was, hilarious. You remember that match, Brian, don't you?
The Dan Severn match.
The Dan Severn Godfather match where he just kept taking him down over and over again?
Oh, yeah.
No, but what's funny is he would take him down, okay? And then every time he took him down, Godfather would, like, go to the guard, okay? But in wrestling, like, in theory, okay, if you're in, you know, it was supposed to be wrestling takedowns and judges wrestling takedowns. And what would happen is Severin would take the guy down, and then Godfather would go to the guard. Now, when you're in the guard, in a martial arts sense, it's considered a neutral position, but in a wrestling sense, you're on your back getting pinned, but pins didn't count.
Yeah.
But it was takedowns, and I just remember, like, Jerry Lawler going, well, that's not a takedown. And, like, he would just take him down, and then Jerry Lawler would go, well, I don't consider that a takedown. And I was just thinking, like, you know, thank God that they have Danny Hodge scoring this, because this announcer is calling this match. You know, Jerry Lawler, it was pretty much exposed that he had never actually watched wrestling in his life. And because he kept saying how Dan Severn never scored any takedowns, when all he did was keep taking the guy down. But I think that the theory behind it, perhaps, was one of two things. Either one, they didn't really think about it a lot, or B, the feeling was that Dan Severn, that Steve Williams would be a good enough wrestler that Dan Severn wouldn't be able to take him down, and that if the match remained on its feet, that Steve Williams would probably be better standing than Dan Severn. And so maybe that was the theory behind it, but
well, that's the only theory that makes sense, other than that they weren't thinking.
Yeah. So anyway, actually, let's throw that one in the list of questions to ask.
Ask Ross.
Yeah. This is Joe Rivette, who says, worst entrance music ever, Steve Regal's Man's Man. Now, see, I like that one.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a classic.
Yeah, that one was just too good. Let's see. Let's go to one more, because we got Jim Ross on the line. Let me see. This is why doesn't WCW, this is from Alfredo Esparza. He goes, why doesn't WCW tape Nitro? I'm serious. Watch Nitro and Thunder at the same time, and it looks like night and day. Well, the last couple of weeks it has, hasn't it?
Hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they have taped Canyon hitting Bigelow with a barbecue or his champagne bottle at Nitro instead of flying him all the way in for 13 seconds?
Because I think they weren't thinking that far ahead.
Let's ask Jim Ross about that one too.
It's like, yeah, ask Jim Ross about things in WCW like that.
He'd have a good answer, though.
He probably will. Let's get him on the line. Jim, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Hey.
We're doing really good. Jim, this is Brian Alvarez. He does Figure 4 Weekly, and we've got, I don't know if you've heard this, but we have more fax questions or email questions than any guest that we have ever had by far. And we had a lot from Ric Flair too, but this is, I got like a week's worth of emails right in front of me. And also, you can call up on this line at 1-877-392-3200 for Jim Ross. We want to keep the callers quick because we expect to get a lot of calls today. Jim, how's the week been going?
Good. Busy as usual, but doing well. I think, not unlike anybody, a lot of other folks, I'm trying to personally combat the flu I've had for a couple of weeks. So much for the concept of getting a flu shot early. But other than that, things are good. On the personal side, things are good. My oldest daughter just got accepted to graduate school, and I think that's a pretty cool accomplishment for her. And she has worked very hard to be a good student. It hasn't come real easily for her, so she's worked very diligently and going to continue to get educated, which I think is a good thing.
Are there a lot of guys, battling the flu right now in the company? Because I know in the Northeast, it just seems like, from what I hear, it's almost epidemic.
We have a lot of our talent have a variety of ailments, and the flu certainly seems to have affected more than its share on our roster. I think it's really seemingly taken its toll on a lot of the folks who work up here in the office because, like you said, the Northeast has been hit especially hard. So but we're working through it. Just we can keep on going. So.
Is there anyone who's going to be missing this weekend because of injuries or illness or anything?
We're going to let D.O. Brown have a couple more days off to get over his shoulder injury as a precautionary thing. He could work this weekend. We think it'd be better for him, and certainly in the long run to let his shoulder heal another couple of days. And he'll be back Monday if needed for Raw. But D.O. will not make the house shows this weekend. Bulldog was originally booked on these cards. I talked to some folks in Calgary today. He'll be clear to come back to work as it stands right now on January the 17th, which would be the Raw in New Haven. So he will not be on the cards this weekend. Hopefully, if we've done our job, he would have been removed from the advertising earlier. But in any event, he will not be on the card this weekend. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. You know, talking to you guys might jar my memory, but
I heard Rodney might have hurt his shoulder at the SmackDown tapings.
Rodney dinged his shoulder a little bit. He did, and even though Rodney's not booked on the house show tour this weekend, he's going to has trained through that injury, from what I understand. And according to I have a guy by the name of Bob Clark who works for us in talent relations. That is one of his jobs is to be the point man on all the injuries and the rehab and stuff. And he's been staying pretty busy on that project. And he told me today that Rodney's shoulder was sore, but he'd be ready to go on Monday.
What about Ken Shamrock and Mark Henry?
Well, Ken Shamrock, interesting thing there. Kenny was cleared from his neck condition to come back to work probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then about a week ago, we heard on the Internet that he had knee surgery, which was news to us. We called him, and he flatly denied that he had not had the surgery. Then, subsequently to that, Vince and I met with Ken in Stamford about a week or so ago. He looked great and cleared to come back to work, and great frame of mind, and looked well rested and so forth. And then I talked to Barry Bloom today, Ken's agent, about some other issues, and he mentioned to me that Kenny had his knee scoped this week on a little minor thing, according to Barry. So just some loose particles that they made a small incision and got out of there. Not a big deal at all, from what I understand, and probably maybe a week's worth of therapy to get him, to work the soreness out. Not a major thing at all. But Mark Henry has got a slight ligament tear in his elbow that we're trying to rehab through and not go the surgical route. And Mark hopefully will be back in time for some participation from the physical level at the Royal Rumble.
Now, what about, I guess, heard a report that Austin is switched to surgery to San Antonio January 17th. What do you know about that?
Well, Steve had consulted a doctor down in San Antonio and regarding his neck after he had seen Dr. Torg and Dr. Ballman, and built a rapport with the guy. And the doctor was a specialist in these sort of injuries, was a surgeon. Had performed these type of surgeries that Dr. Ballman, quite frankly, had pioneered. This guy had performed several of those surgeries as well. And Steve got very comfortable with him. The fact that it would be done there in San Antonio, was another benefit. And they're putting together a real A-team of physicians. And this doctor has taken a very special interest in Steve. And Steve was a little bit uncomfortable with the publicity surrounding his involvement in Cleveland. I think, the minute he walked out the door, it was on their website. And it's just something that, would like to not be that aggressive on. It's, I don't know. We were a little bit surprised that they were that proactive, shall we say. But bottom line is that Steve feels very comfortable with these surgeons in Texas that have looked at all of his files, have spent hours and hours consulting him. They spent more time with him on an individual basis than any doctors that he's ever had. And he's gotten very comfortable with them, and something surgery of this nature, that's a very important aspect of the procedure, is him being comfortable and confident that he's in good hands. And he feels very comfortable and very confident that these folks can do a good job. So basically, it's been scheduled for January 17th, and that's as it stands now. It's exactly when that'll happen, and he's been training almost every day. I talked to him just a day or two ago, and his spirits are better than I've talked with him in, months. He's just really happy about this decision. He's looking forward to the surgery. He's excited about the future, and so to me it was it's a good thing, but apparently the clinic in Cleveland has issued a press release where Dr. Ballman thinks Steve is either somewhat naive or not very bright to allow someone else to operate on him in the world other than Dr. Ballman. And, it's Dr. Ballman's opinion.
Has Steve given any indication that if everything goes well, he'd be willing to do something in the ring for WrestleMania?
No, we haven't talked about WrestleMania. We haven't talked about any events. We're taking everything a day at a time in a literal sense. You know, the main thing is to get him ready for the surgery, and, boy, he's doing everything he can to do that. That's what we're focusing on right now. And then the 17th, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that the surgery comes out as well as we expect it to. And then we'll kind of go from there and see how his rehab goes and so forth. I think it would be unfair to Steve. I think it would be unfair to the other guys. I think it would be unfair to the company, fans, anybody associated with our product to go ahead and kind of pencil him in for WrestleMania right now, even though we feel like the chances of him being able to do something in the ring after his surgery are better than they've ever been since his condition arose.
Yeah.
Now,
has this doctor offered any differing opinion as far as like his, the chances of him being able to wrestle full time, part time?
No, everybody's opinion is basically the same. They all believe that they can put him back into normal physical condition, that he can lead a normal life. As we all know, what these athletes do, these performers do, is not normal. So how Steve's body is going to respond to the bumps of working remain to be seen. The doctors feel like he's got a heck of a good chance to come back. He thinks he's got a heck of a good chance to come back. I think he certainly believes that he has not had his last match. Now, obviously, if he were able to come back, we would book him in a very judicious sense, like you would any commodity, and to make sure that we didn't overdo it. But we're basically just taking it one day at a time. It's just hard to plan on what you would do with a guy until you know that you have the availability of him. And it's easy when you have an Austin. It's like you're bringing back. He has been, and in my eyes is still the top guy in this business. And until he is permanently taken out of uniform and sitting on the sidelines, he's going to be that until Austin can't defend his place. And I just think that it's easy to get him back involved, as over as he is, if we see that he could physically be able to do a few things. But, there's no hurry. We think we're comfortable with where we're going to WrestleMania, and having Steve Austin as a part of it obviously would be a huge boost. No doubt about it. I'm not trying to downplay that. But he is so over that if we didn't know we weren't going to have Steve until a week before the event, we could figure out something very quickly that Stone Cold could be a part of at WrestleMania. I think any of us could probably do that.
What's the doctor's name in San Antonio?
Youngblood.
Dr. Youngblood?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you know Brian, do you know the first name by any chance? I think you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, it's
I think it's Lloyd.
Yeah, Lloyd.
This morning I've been out there cracking the numbers as far as the Wrestling Observer Awards. Jim Ross was named for the 8th time Wrestling Announcer of the Year in our readership poll, and he got more votes in his category than anyone except for the guy who won Best Box Office Draw, which I'm sure is not a stretch to figure out who that happened to be. So anyway, just wanted to congratulate you for that, Jim.
Oh, thanks, Dave. That's very nice. That's no matter what folks may think, that's always been a real nice thing for me. It's always been a great motivating factor, and it's very, very nice, and it's very flattering that the fans that study the business as closely as they do think favorably of my work, and I appreciate that very much. And I think the other guy, I got no problem with those numbers. He pretty well blew everything box office away that there ever was. And like I say, I want to sound flippant about Steve's return. Our biggest priority is getting Steve healthy so he can just lead a normal life. If we get him back in the ring, that's going to be a huge bonus for us. And, when you got Stone Cold available, it doesn't. You don't have to be a booking genius to figure out that you're going to get him involved in whatever event he can be involved in. And it's not too hard to do with him being so over.
Now, one thing that we saw, I guess it was I think it was in the Atlanta paper this morning, and I know it has been circulating here for about a week. The story about the contract with USA Network and UPN is that actually expiring soon? And talks about going.
I've read a little bit about that, and I'm not directly involved in that area, and I don't think that those contracts are up like imminently, but I do think that they may be getting ready to start their negotiations for the next run. That I could feel comfortable saying, knowing. But I don't think that, from what I understand, that they're up right, like imminently. And of course, both USA, we're the highest rated shows on both networks, so I don't think that there's going to be certainly any issues as far as the network wanting to keep its respective WWF programs on the air. So I don't really know where we are on that, other than I know both networks are very pleased with the results that we've been getting.
Did you hear anything as far as the thing that happened on that radio show yesterday with The Rock, and what did you hear about that?
That's the only thing I really heard about it was it seemed like from the information I got that The Rock was kind of ambushed in that interview, and the host of the show are saying that from what I understand, saying that they weren't aware of what was going to happen, and the guy that did the abrasive material, kind of a John Rocker type thing, very racial from what I gather, and I didn't hear the show. He then basically shifted the blame to his writers for posting something that he wasn't aware of. So everybody really started passing the buck, and basically The Rock was offended by the nature of the dialogue and politely excused himself as they went to commercial break, or during the commercial break, and left. So I think he handled it as well as one could expect him to under the circumstances. And I'm sure that those guys, if they had the opportunity, might want to reconsider their creative on that segment. But that's what I understand about it. It was just some racial remarks that he was particularly offended by, and declined to participate any farther in the program.
I assume you've read Rock's autobiography by now, right?
I've read a large portion of it. I have not finished it yet. I actually only got the book on Monday in my hands, and I didn't get to start on it until the plane ride back on Wednesday. So between blowing my nose and taking vitamin C and stuff, I have read a great deal of it, but not all of it.
Because I got a book review here. Somebody emailed me that's read the entire book, and I guess there's a lot of information in the book, or he talks a lot about how strongly he is against racism, and actually tells a bunch of stories about how at different times during his life when he's, I guess, been confronted with people that have said things, that he has gone as far as to attempt to strangle them and pull the tongue out of a teammate's mouth during a fight. So obviously it's something that he's very concerned about, and I don't know, from what I've heard, because I actually went up to the website and I read some of the stuff up there, and obviously there is a lot of, I don't know if I would say hate would be the best, because what they try and say up there is that it's in parody, and obviously that means nothing. But anyway, apparently it was not Sick Boy, the individual that was on the show, that actually posted the statement. But Rock had a good point in that he said that if you're the webmaster of this website, you should probably know what everybody else is putting on there, as opposed to coming on here and saying you know nothing about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's very sensitive about those issues, as he should be. And I just think that it was a bad decision made on the radio people's part. And not that we all, in the creative vein, haven't made bad decisions on programming. So I think they made a mistake, and he decided to not participate any longer. I thought that he handled it, when I heard how it was handled, I thought he handled it really with a lot of class. He didn't
he didn't explode or anything like that. He just basically stated his point and then left.
Exactly.
You posted something today. In fact, we've gotten a lot of emails about this one, and this is the thing in regards to Terry Funk's contract with the WWF. and his appearance with the WCW. What's basically that all about?
Well, Terry's contract rolled over at the end of December, and it had an automatic option year on it. And quite frankly, Terry had been getting royalties, for his work here on tapes, videotapes, and merchandise items, primarily videotapes. But he'll still get a quarterly check for his royalties. And, we have a great relationship with Terry, and I think that's the basis of the fact that even though he participated on WCW's program last week under contract to the WWF, we're choosing to release him of his contract so that he can pursue their opportunity. And certainly we'll look forward at some point in time and to doing business with Terry again. We have a great deal of respect for Terry Funk, and we didn't have anything creatively for Terry at this point in time. So he had an opportunity to do something that he wanted to do, apparently. And so we just weren't going to stand in his way. And so it was just a kind of slipped through the cracks on our legal people's side that the contract expired, or rolled over rather. And I'm sure that Terry hadn't thought another thing about it. Obviously he didn't. Probably wasn't even aware of it, is my point. So and we're looking at it as if it was an oversight. And Vince, I know, has a great deal of respect for Terry. And I certainly have been a fan of his for years. I mean, for a long, long time. I think the world of him. So, it's just one of those things where he'll sign a release hopefully the next day or so. And then that will legally, make it okay from a legal standpoint for him to continue doing what he's doing. So he has all that paperwork, and I'm sure he'll be getting that taken care of, and, we'll move on about our business.
We have a question here from Tim Knoll, who's asking, is Reckless Youth under contract? And if so, are there any plans for him? And also, when does Amy Dumas start?
Well, right now, Amy Dumas is, her creative is is being addressed. There's a good opportunity that we may put her with Papi Chulo and give them a makeover and repackage them, so to speak, and see how that looks, and see how they function in the ring. We're going to bring them up here to Stanford and spend a week or so with them and see what kind of chemistry they may or may not have. The nice thing about it is that we're encouraging Papi to speak English more, and Amy can help us there because she speaks Spanish. So we're going to look at that, and I would suspect that they would probably would debut, I'd say, within the next 4 to 6 weeks, and maybe sooner, but that's a pretty safe window. And what was the other question?
Is Reckless Youth under contract?
Yes, he is, and we're looking at assigning all of our developmental people will, within the next 30 days, all be working either in Louisville or Memphis or Puerto Rico. And I'm not sure exactly where this young man's going to go. Bruce Pritchard is the point person on the new talent development program, and we haven't sat down and talked about where he would go. My gut would tell me he'd probably go to Louisville.
How about Scott Vick?
Scott Vick is ready to roll. He's in great shape, and he's healthy, and we're going to bring him up here next Thursday for 3 or 4 days of not really an evaluation, but basically just an assessment, and watch him work in the ring and watch him and listen to him do some promos and basically learn a little bit more about him so that we can get some feedback from some folks within the company as it relates to his character development. So he'll be coming up here next week, and again, based on what creative direction he goes, he should also be another one that would see starting in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
So that's starting in the WWF and not going anywhere else?
I think our opinion right now is that his working ability, he could probably start here with us. If not, his assignment in one of those other areas would probably be for 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Now, I saw something that Jerry Lawler was getting TV in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like any kind of a thing going on between, because you guys are sending the talent to Randy Hales in Memphis, and of course Lawler works obviously with WWF, and what's the company's stance on that?
Well, we obviously have a great rapport with the King, and we have a good rapport, I would say, with Randy Hales, basically because of Jim Cornette's efforts down there in Memphis on our behalf. We're, as I have said on my website, and the last 30 days, easily 30 days, that we're going to be making some major changes in our talent development program this year. And our goal is to basically give that whole department of talent relations, that whole area of talent relations, a makeover. And there's certain things that I want that department to do as far as being able to more accurately measure and evaluate talent, a more aggressive method of scouting and recruiting, and then consequently signing good human beings that have some aptitude and obviously some athleticism and hopefully some charisma that we could mold into a player for the WWF roster. There's just a lot. I wanted to really be a state-of-the-art program. It isn't right now, and hopefully within the next 60 days we'll see some huge changes in that, and that may mean some changes in Memphis. It could be some subtle changes in Louisville. Certainly, we're looking to start something in Puerto Rico. I'm looking for a lot of changes there. But we don't see right now any issues, any significant conflict of interest, as it would seem on paper with Lawler doing a show and then us doing been working with Power Pro. King wants to get more exposure in Memphis, and he works 2 days a week for us. So, and I can understand his motivation. So we're supportive of his product, and we're going to, as we are all of our talent development areas, continue to evaluate our relationship there with Randy Hales.
Okay, I want to do one more, and then we'll go to a break and then go to the phone calls. This is from Mike Hall, who is from Oklahoma, and he just wants to know, in your opinion, who was the best wrestler ever to come out of Oklahoma?
Oh, God, that's a loaded question, huh?
Yeah.
Might as well ask me if I'm a Mickey Mantle fan. Well, that's obviously, to my view, Danny Hodge. If you're looking for amateur wrestling, there's no question.
Yeah.
There's other pros that drew more money. Watts drew more money than Danny Hodge. Watts drew big money in New York, and Watts drew big money in Frisco and other places. And Watts drew more money in that territory than Danny did. There's some contributing factors to that, ticket prices, et cetera. But Cowboy actually orchestrated and drew more money on top. But Hodge, I believe, was the best I ever saw. It was him. And I would think, quite frankly, the second best I ever saw out of Oklahoma would be Jack Briscoe.
Yeah.
And Briscoe was a great amateur, too, but he probably was not quite as good an amateur as Hodge. Hope Jack doesn't beat me up for saying that. But Jack had more charisma and probably was a better pro than Hodge.
He was he was definitely a bigger star worldwide than Hodge. Hodge was more.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Not that Hodge wasn't a big star, and a star wherever he went, but Briscoe in the early 70s was, the number 1 or 2 guy probably in the whole business for a while there.
And the thing about that is that, the fellow asked me my favorite, and again, as a kid and watching wrestling every Saturday night at 10:30, Hodge was the number 1 baby face in the territory, and he was the Oklahoma hero, and it was there was a special bond with a real Oklahoma guy on this, fighting all these Japanese guys and these Russian guys, and all the stereotypical heels that he was booked with. So I think my favorite was Hodge, and that's from sentimental reasons. From a business standpoint, Briscoe was probably the better pro.
And also, he wants to know if WWF has got any plans for a television taping in Oklahoma this year.
Well, I lobby for that all the time. I had a conversation with Ed Cohen about that today. We're talking about WrestleMania in the year 2001, and I said, well, I guess that means Tulsa's out of the running, and I pretty well got that verified. On a serious note, I think that there is a chance we might be able to do something in Oklahoma City if it will route with when it would route with either Little Rock, who has a brand new building, 18,000-seater, and or Dallas. But it's going to have to route. And right now it's not scheduled. But I hope, and, I'm continuing to do a little bit of hometown lobbying that we have at least one event there in next year and make it a TV taping.
Any news on Seattle?
Yeah, Seattle. We're going to do a TV taping in Seattle this year. I can probably look at my book and tell you when you come back from the break. But I think it's in April. It's going to be tied to Vancouver. Vancouver for Monday Night Raw, and then Seattle for SmackDown, I believe.
Let's go to Kevin in California. You're first up with Jim Ross.
Hello, Brian. Hello, Dave. Hello, Jim. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Hey.
Congratulations on your daughter.
Oh, thank you.
My 11-year-old son, Tyler, is your #1 fan here in Stockton, California. Just want you to know that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
And he was pretty upset when the other company ran the Oklahoma gag.
Mm-hmm.
I told him that while it showed they had no class, that it was a backhanded compliment, that they're obviously jealous of your stature and your talent. What could I tell him from the horse's mouth your feeling was about that?
Oh, I tell him not to take it too seriously, that they're those fellows are just trying, I guess, create a character that would be entertaining, but, I didn't ever think it was too entertaining from a personal standpoint, but not take it too seriously. It didn't bother me as much as some folks thought it did. It wasn't something that I hung my hat on, no pun intended. Just,
gotcha.
It's just, you got to be bigger than some of those situations that you're faced with sometimes, and just move on. And that's
That's what I'll tell him. One other quick question. Brian and Dave have told me I'm crazy, but could you ever see a scenario, for the sake of the fans, where the companies would get together for a once-a-year extravaganza pay-per-view and we could really see a knockdown drag-out?
No.
That's a simple answer.
You're right, Brian. You're right, Dave. Hey, thank you for giving me the time.
You bet.
Okay, is our next caller Pat in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
How you doing,
excellent show, gentlemen. Mr. Ross, I know this is a rather broad question, but just wondering if you had any what are your fondest memories of working with Cowboy Bill Watts in Mid-South Wrestling?
Well, I think some of the best memories of working with Cowboy was watching him write, which at times was some extremely entertaining episodic weekly television. It was amazing to see how he would forward the stories, and where all 7 segments of a 1-hour show would have some significance. There'd be very little throwaways where you get somebody the obligatory win, because when you thought that was going to happen, something big exploded, So I think watching him write episodic TV and keep storylines fresh with a shorter roster than folks are using nowadays was extremely educational for me. His long-term planning and his method for making house shows special. I certainly used a lot of those principles in booking our house shows for the last few years, where you try to make the show special and just not have a bunch of matches for matches' sake. So I think both his orchestration and management of a house show card and his ability to write episodic TV, compelling episodic TV more often than not, with a short roster was some really memorable stuff.
Mm-hmm. Given the climate, the atmosphere of the business today, how successful do you think he'd be if he attempted to get back in the business today?
Well, if he didn't have to have a one-on-one relationship with the talent, there's a lot of things Bill could do now in an administrative capacity that, no doubt in my mind, he couldn't contribute significantly to any company that does wrestling. But Bill, by his own admission, doesn't have a lot of patience in dealing with people in this field. I think in other areas he's done better. But Bill has there's some challenging times. Would have some challenging times motivating talent in the way that he's comfortable doing, and that's through power and through intimidation. And I don't think that philosophy works anymore. And personally, in my view, and I think that would be his challenge. But he's a brilliant guy. I mean, he had a great mind for the business, and I'm sure if he were so motivated, he could do it again. But his personal skills in dealing with talent in this era of talent, I don't think would be as positive as you would need for it to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's watching a tape of the Doug and DiBiase coal miner cage match, coal miner gloves.
From Houston, Texas.
Nothing like that. It's just hair. It puts the goosebumps on your arms.
Yeah. Well, he had a great ability of capturing the drama, and you got to remember that not only did he orchestrate those matches and create those storylines, but he by and large, laid all the spots out. And then he would in turn, because of his passion and his vision, would tell me at a certain point there when I started doing it, the story behind the match, and to go out there and be passionate and to tell a story. And I never had any problem being passionate because I was a huge fan. I mean, I was pinching myself because I'm this huge wrestling fan, this little Oklahoma town, actually getting the opportunity to do commentary for wrestling. God, I was the luckiest guy in the country, and I still feel that way by and large. So it was amazing to look back at it because it was a lot of a one-man effort. Even though he had a lot of bookers, he still put his fingerprints all over the product, just like Vince is doing.
I had a question about the WWF booking. How long-term are you guys booking now? Because I know Vince Russo said before he left that it got to the point where he was writing TV week to week. And now that they're gone, have you guys gone back to more of a long-term, plan for the main events and some of the undercard, or is it back to, just a couple of weeks in advance?
We're doing more long-term planning now than we were a few months ago. And I think that's basically because Vince it's his basic primary responsibility now to write the TVs. He's trying to plan farther ahead because, quite frankly, it makes it easier. If you know your destination, you can create your journey is established. But you got to know where you're headed. You got to know what road to take. And if you don't, you just travel. Where are you going? I mean, where does this journey take you?
Now, do you do long-term planning with all the programs? Because I know one of the main problems would be if somebody got injured, obviously some plans would have to be scrapped. So is it mostly the important storylines and the lesser storylines from the undercard or more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been that way in the business for years. The main events, the box office, as they call it, gets most of the focus and the most time devoted to it as it relates to the storyline and airtime, and the others are given less time simply because there's not more time available. So I don't think that's changed any. But I do think we have a pretty good feel of what several things that we would like to do at WrestleMania, and kind of depending on how stories develop and talent develops and things of that nature happen, and the nature takes its course. We have a fairly good plan of where we'd like to go at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Papi Chulo and Amy Dumas. Are there any people, like say in the next 4-6 weeks, maybe people in Louisville or Memphis in particular, who you're looking at bringing in or close, who would be like the next rung of developmental people that are close to getting on TV?
We've got we've probably got half a dozen people that we think are close to being ready. And we are in the process. This week there's been a lot of, we've looked at a lot of tapes, and I think, I would think probably we're going to have a little bit better feel for that within the next week. But we think Steve Bradley's about ready. You know, we like what Jim Cornette has done with Barry Buchanan down in Louisville. We have an idea maybe for a character for him that would work. Steve Bradley's work has been at our TVs. We can look at him every Monday and Tuesday. Has been excellent, and he's a fine young man, and he's a real welcome addition in our locker room. And one of the reasons that we bring these young guys when we're getting close to doing something with them to TV while they're working in a territory, so they can build the relationships with the guys that are already here. And Steve Bradley's not unlike Kurt Angle. Steve Bradley had less obstacles to overcome getting accepted in the locker room than Kurt did, because Kurt came in, as the Olympic gold medal winner, et cetera, et cetera. And Kurt has been accepted, very genuinely and very warmly in the locker room. He's a hard-working guy, a humble kid, and he's turned into what we think right now is we're ecstatic with his progress and where he's headed. But we think Steve Bradley's about ready. We think Barry Buchanan is sure getting closer than he's been. But the other issue about that is we're going to spot some guys, like I said, maybe 5, 6 guys that we think are close, but they still have obligations in their territories they're in, and they're in programs, they're in issues. And in all fairness to Jim Cornette, we're not going to take any talent from him without him being totally aware of it and on the same page as it relates to him finishing up that talent. That wouldn't be fair to them. That would defeat the purpose of trying to work with those guys down in Louisville and Memphis or wherever it may be.
Do you guys ever get concerned with all the developmental talent that you'll actually get eventually 2 people to do anything with?
No, you say that again?
As far as like the new developmental talent, do you guys ever get, think about what would happen if down the road there was so much new talent in the company that you just didn't have enough, spots for them? No,
that's a good problem to have. I hope we can encounter that problem sometime, and maybe I'll call you and ask you for your advice on how to solve it. I honestly don't know. We've never been in that position, Brian. Honestly, there's never been too much talent, and when you're doing, as much TV as we are, we're a long way away, in our view, from being in that predicament.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, we're going to sign a whole lot more prospects than are going to make it. But that's not unlike a kid going to Hollywood wanting to be an actor, or a guy signing a rookie contract with a baseball team. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a whole lot more prospects than you're going to have keepers.
Yeah,
and,
I was just looking back at, World Championship Wrestling when they probably had 120 guys in their contract, and there were so many talented guys, and they just didn't have a role for them, and so many of them floundered. And, I was just wondering if there was any, how would that be handled if such a situation arose?
Well, it would be a predicament, and certainly the territories that we were working with would be have the opportunity to have some better workers available to them. But I still think that we're several steps away from having that problem.
Let's go to Dave in New York right now. Dave, what's going on?
Hey, one very quick question that I guess either of you could probably answer, and then my question for JR is that my first question is the IWA Puerto Rico starting? IWA Puerto Rico TV starting tomorrow on Telemundo, because that's what their website says, but TV Guide says that infomercials are on.
I wouldn't know the answer to that, but I will.
I think Victor Quinones has been talking to them about doing a deal. I don't know how close it was. Maybe that is the situation, but there's been some dialogue. Victor's a very ambitious guy, and has survived his whole career in making deals. And he's got some ideas and some stuff that he wants to do, and quite frankly, he's got some pretty good plans, and I wouldn't be surprised.
If they're paying for the time, it might be listed as an infomercial the first couple of weeks.
I wouldn't think he'd be paying for the time.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that wouldn't be, just judging from what he's wanting to accomplish.
I don't think it'd be financially feasible for him at this time to absorb that kind of cost.
Yeah.
On the fact that they're not running that many markets right now to defray those television costs. Being undercapitalized is an issue in any business. I'm not saying Victor's undercapitalized, but I think there's probably a demand there for the product, and And Victor's got some contacts, too, in that Hispanic television world that he has worked with in the past. So whatever he succeeds in doing is not going to surprise me. And more power to him. I hope that he does, because it just creates another atmosphere and opportunity for our young talent to work in front of a crowd.
Okay, what do you think was the 3 best calls you ever did of matches?
The 3 what?
The 3 best calls you ever did of matches.
Like I guess he's saying like matches that if you were to go back, your favorite performances of yourself,
memorable.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the WrestleMania last year, when I came back to work, was probably going to have to be in there someplace because of the fact that I've seen it about a zillion times in every highlight that could ever be created. Mick Foley's Hell in a Cell in Pittsburgh with The Undertaker. And probably a match that I enjoyed doing about as much as any would be a toss-up between Flair and Steamboat, or Flair and Terry Funk, somewhere around the late 80s. Both those I thought were all those matches I can pretty well, call again without saying it.
I think the Hell in the Cell match, probably just because it's been repeated so many times in so many forms, has probably become like the most memorable call. But for years I would have said like some of those Flair Steamboat matches from '89. But boy, I mean, I've seen that footage, and your call of it in so many forms for the last year and a half. It's unbelievable. It's almost, that match is one of these weird ones where I think it's bigger now than it really was almost when it took place.
Yeah,
well, nobody's ever going to forget the bump, obviously, and whenever you have the bump stuck in your mind, you can't forget your call either of the bump.
Yeah.
Well, that was an unbelievable move. I still to this day I shake my head in amazement, and I love Mick. I really truly do. He's a wonderful man, but I hope to God he never ever even remotely thinks about doing anything close to like that again. But he's amazing. He's an amazing guy. And, I don't know that I'll ever forget that day.
I assume you were aware of those bumps before they took place, or were you not filled in?
No, I wasn't aware that. I knew that he was going to do something extraordinary, but that didn't surprise me because it was him in a main event or co-main event in a pay-per-view. And if you look back at all the main events that Mick Foley was in the last year or so with our company, he has never failed to deliver. And I thought that his match with Shawn Michaels in Philadelphia that September, a couple years ago, I thought was one of the best matches that I'd seen in a long, long time. Those two guys told a great story, and it was tremendous. A lot of false finishes, and it was very well performed, I thought. But you look back at his track record, and he just always delivered. So when somebody said, well, Mick's probably going to do something extraordinary tonight, I said, yeah, I'm sure he will. Because I really didn't want to know for a couple of reasons. I didn't want to worry about it, which is a selfish reason. The other reason from a professional standpoint is that I tend to do better work if I don't know everything that every little I dotted and every T crossed. So obviously I know the big picture.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sell that bill of goods. I don't know what's going on, but I'd rather not know every minute detail. And certainly that spot was not minute, but it was a spot that I was not informed of. So when it happened, it happened without me thinking about it happening. It happened, and whatever I said was a natural, real, bona fide reaction.
What's the status as far as the sponsorship and SmackDown, as far as the companies that have pulled out? Are there others that have come back? Are they just kind of waiting it out to come back, or is that kind of a dead issue now?
I think it's really a dead issue right now. It's not. It has not been a topic of any discussion in upper level management meetings that I've been involved in. I think it's really we've kind of weathered the storm on that, in the way I see it. I know that Burger King, as most folks know, came back after a week, and they're having problems with inventory in the first quarter as far as accommodating the demand for commercial time. So I know business is very good, thank goodness. But, I think the thing really is kind of blown over, and quite frankly and honestly, it isn't a major issue in our office, and hasn't been for several weeks.
Now, it's been pretty obvious in the last month or so. SmackDown is toned down. I don't think that there's really been any noticeable effect, one way or the other on the ratings. The women wearing slightly more clothes. I noticed, and I don't know if this was a conscious effort or just how the show turned out. I mean, I just noticed from watching Raw on Monday, it seemed more toned down than previous weeks. And is that like a company thing, or is just happened to be how that show turned out?
I think it's as much as it happened to be how that show turned out as any conscious effort. There are certain things that we have evaluated, and I just think that we're going to probably try to take the higher road more often than not. Not that we're always going to hit that mark, but I don't think that there was any we certainly didn't have any powwow or any huddle to determine we're going to do this on Raw tonight, we're going to tone it back or back down on it or something. I think it basically the function how the show was written, but I do think that you're going to see us take the high road more often than not on a lot of the things we do and a lot of the things we say. And certainly that isn't to say that we aren't going to try to maintain an edge and still do some provocative television. I just think we're going to be able. I think we're going to be able to do it better. I think we're getting better at what we do, and hopefully we're going to be able to refine what we do and still keep the product entertaining for all of our demographics, especially the ones that seem to be the most responsive, and that's the males 18 to 34, essentially.
Are there any characters, whether it be an Edge or a Christian or people like or the Hardy Boys or whatever, that you're kind of looking at trying to really elevate and move to that top level? Like, who do you see as far as like you've got your upper echelon with Foley bowing out fairly soon, I guess later in the year. So it's Austin if he's healthy. Obviously Hunter and Rock is the prime guys. Are there any guys that you see right underneath there that maybe would have pay-per-view main events maybe towards the summer or the fall next year?
Well, certainly the Undertaker's going to be back.
Sure.
And he fits in that upper echelon group, obviously.
Are you still looking at probably Royal Rumble, or is that evaluation changed?
Well, he's doing better. He's still training, and he seems to be seems to be getting a lot better, and his spirits are great, and the attitude's wonderful. And I think we miss his leadership. Not that we haven't had good leadership, but you can't have too much. He's such a steadying influence in our locker room, and so we miss his presence in that respect as well as in front of the camera. But I think right now our plans are that he will hopefully be available to us at the Royal Rumble, and we're going on that premise unless his growing is just not going to get it done. So that's the game plan right now. I think we got a lot of guys that have the ability, if they got the right story, got enough exposure, got the opportunity to talk and verbalize on television a little bit more. I think Edge is certainly a kid that we have a great deal of confidence in. I think Val Venus has a wealth of potential, personally. I think Prince Albert has a lot of potential. I think we'll see him doing some upward movement. There's D'Lo Brown is, in my view, he's like a puzzle that is a picture puzzle that has a missing piece, and the piece is not his work ethic or his anything with him other than us getting him into a good story and him being able to execute it. And so he's very close into taking a step up, in my view. I think, like I said, I think Edge has got lots of potential, a great upside for him. But so does Christian, and certainly the Hardy Boys are extremely innovative, and they just have a huge upside. I mean, it's inevitable to me that all those guys I mentioned, whether it be in the next 6 months or the following 6 months, but soon in their careers, are going to have the opportunity to be given the opportunity to go to the next level. And I don't have any doubts that some of them are not going to stick and become big stars.
Now, as far as D'Lo Brown goes, is his contract situation totally worked out? Is there what's there have been a lot of rumors about him the last 2-3 months?
He's got probably about, I'm going to guess, about 14 or 16 months left on his contract. And he and I have begun discussions on a new deal. That our goal is to have it done long before he has even 1 year left. We think that he's, earned a new contract, and we have great hopes for D'Lo. He is the kind of kid that we like to do business with. He's intelligent, and he has a lot of integrity, and he has a lot of class. If you give me his notice today, I'd say the same thing. I met him when I was doing some stuff for Cornette down in Smoky Mountain. I know how badly he wants to be in the business, how badly he worked to get here, and how much weight he lost, and the constant fight he has on working on his conditioning and his look and all those things. He's really got a great heart and a great attitude, and we're going to do all we can to keep him. And I feel confident and comfortable that we will. He wants to stay here, and we want him to stay here. So we both have the main goals in common. It's just a matter now of coming to terms on the dollar side, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't have something done on his contract within the next couple of weeks.
Let's go to Western Virginia. Wes, what's going on?
Hi, guys. Jim, I wanted to ask you, in light of the McMahons being so involved on the Raw show, and also with Mick Foley and Steve Austin not appearing, how do you expect the house show business to go in the future of the WWF?
Well, I expect that those guys we just talked about to step up to the plate and continue to grow as performers. The Outlaw, the whole DX group, the Outlaws and X-Pac and Triple H are all young, and they all like to perform, and they're very, very valuable in our house shows. I feel good about the fact that they're going to be on our house shows. Kane is continuing to, in my view, to move upwardly. He's a great attraction in the house shows. His reaction, his response to house shows is great. We want to continue to see improvement in Big Show, and we've been real happy with what he has done in the last several weeks specifically. So we believe that the house show business is going to remain competitive and good for us. I think that the one thing that we do is that we really we motivate the talent, which is not hard to do with this group, who perform at a high level in the house shows. We're doing our best to have finishes more often, much more often than not. We're trying our best not to bait and switch and false advertise. I think we've done a good job in the results of the live events, and hopefully that'll help bring people back the next time. I feel comfortable that this roster that we have in place is going to still be strong. And obviously we would love to have Austin back, and we need Undertaker back, and no doubt about that. But knock on wood, as long as The Rock is healthy and the Big Show and Kane, and we'll get a little bit more mileage out of old Mick while we're elevating some other folks. Chris Jericho is going to be a huge addition on that side too. I feel real comfortable that our house show business is going to remain strong.
I think one of the strong points of you guys' house show business is the fact that the shows are packed with all the big names, and the production of the shows is also the same sort of production that you'd almost get if you went to a TV taping, because as long as you have like a couple of big names up there on the top, most fans, at least like around here when the WWF is coming, aren't as excited to see like who's wrestling who in the matchups. But just the fact that the Big Show is coming to this area, and there's going to be the production, there's going to be the big names on top, and as long as that stays strong, I think business will be good. Even if they're top names that are on the shelf, this has been the case for like the past couple of months now.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to provide a good show. I think Dave wrote some stuff about the show that he saw in person in San Jose, which was a house show, and I'd like to think that house show was indicative of the house shows that we do much more often than not. And hopefully by the performance of the guys that night and the effort they put forth, that those folks that were there buying tickets will not have a problem investing in our product again the next time we're in that marketplace. And for San Jose's sake, situation rather, they responded very well because our next date there, which happens to be a Raw, sold out in pretty quick fashion.
We've got a lot of people have actually been asking this one. Is there anything as far as you know, as far as the status of Ric Flair? And I guess this question here says, if he got out of his contract, would you be interested in him? Which I think is almost a redundant question. But what is this? Do you know anything new on the status of Ric Flair?
No, I really don't know anything new on Ric's status. Other than he's still under contract to WCW. Ric is a great treasure in our business, and has a lot to offer. And he's idolized by a lot of guys in our locker room. There's no doubt about that. And I think he's very well respected. I know that he's extremely well respected in our front office, including the owner of this company. So, I don't know what Ric's future holds, but I wouldn't think that Ric would be sitting on the sidelines too long if he were available. But past that, I think any company, whether it be in wrestling or anywhere else, would be lucky to have Ric Flair involved with them.
Before we go to the next call, I just want to ask also, is another question a lot of people have been asking for the last couple of weeks. Is there any start date for Taz, about how many weeks or imminently, or what's the status of him?
Well, our agreement with Paul Lee was that we'd start Taz sometime after the first of the year and give Paul the opportunity to use Taz as much as he needed in the last quarter of the year. So we can start Taz anytime, and I think basically speaking, it's a matter of the fact that we all have high hopes for Taz, and we want to give Taz the very best opportunity that he can get to have a good debut and to have a very auspicious start. And with that said, the creative needs to reflect that feeling. And I don't think that there is the creative yet that we have discussed has anyone comfortable yet. I think we're still looking for exactly the right idea. And it's no layup that he's even going to be in the Royal Rumble. But he might be. I mean, I'm not being evasive. I guess I am, but I'm not intentionally being evasive. I think it depends on the creative direction. We have a lot of high hopes for him, and we want to make sure that we don't fumble getting started. And so I think that that's a good thing for Taz. The better debut. You only get, the old cliche, you only get one chance to make a first impression, and would like to be able to get him started off with a bang. And we don't know that the Royal Rumble is a place for that to happen. It might be, but right now it hasn't been confirmed.
Taking at his debut, do you guys have any idea about where you're planning on going other than that?
No, I think there's a whole lot of talk about that, and really, if we do vignettes on him, it'll all depend on how those vignettes are produced as to how he's going to be perceived. If we do some preconditioning in that sense. If I think that the first time fans see him in certain areas, he's going to be a fan favorite. But I might be wrong there. I'm wrong plenty of times. That's my gut reaction to it because he is new, and in some areas he has, a real good name identity. He may not get the reaction in San Antonio that he would get in Worcester or in MSG or something. So I think he's going to be a babyface, but I may be wrong. But a lot of it depends on if we do vignettes, how they would be written and produced and executed by Taz.
Is it? Would you be looking at him more of a gimmick similar to his gimmick with Paul, as far as kind of serious wrestler, or
I think so. I don't think we're going to. Paul did a great job, and so did Taz, in creating that persona in ECW. and it was some of Paul's best work, and the talent responded well and took it on even farther. But I think that, for those that know Taz, he's a pretty intense guy. He's pretty introspective. He's a very analytical guy. He's always thinking, and he's not a happy-go-lucky individual. He's a very serious, guy. And I don't think you can make him anything other than basically than what he is. I think that's a huge trend in what we're doing, is trying to package talents so far 180 degrees from what they truly are. And I think the audience nowadays is so intelligent and so educated that they see right through it. And those characterizations, as a rule, in my view, don't make it over the long haul.
How many years you go back in wrestling, Jim? Well over 25 years, right?
Yep, yeah, longer than I like to remember. I just had my 48th birthday on Monday. And
yeah, in fact, we've had several people emailed in belated happy birthday to you.
Well, thanks. Don't send cash. But no, it's been about that long. It's hard to believe. But in a way, it doesn't seem like it's been that long at all, because I think I've always, I've been a fan since I was a little kid, and as soon as I could turn the TV on and turn the channel, so, it's kind of zoomed by. It's like I can't hardly believe I've been in this business this long.
We got a full bank of callers and a ton of emails. Let's just go to Dave in Arizona first. Dave, you're up with Jim Ross.
I had two extremely quick questions. First, if you could add two guys from WCW and ECW to the WWF, who would that be? And also, how often do you and Vince McMahon examine the WCW for talent? Because obviously you had to have seen Chris Jericho and WCW and the Giant.
Dave, you're going to have to help me. I could barely hear the caller.
Okay, he was wondering if you could pick two guys off of the WCW or ECW roster. Who would they be? And also, how much do you watch WCW and ECW television? He was just mentioning how obviously you must watch some of it because you'd seen Jericho and the Giant there. So.
Well, ECW's got some interesting talent, and Paul does more with less than just about anybody I've ever known. It's less, I don't mean character, but, he doesn't have a lot of resources over there, and he's put out a pretty damn good product. I like, there's a lot of things about Raven that I like, and there's some things about Raven that trouble me. But I think that he's got a brilliant mind. I really and truly do. He's very gifted. And I personally like Scotty a lot. Worked with him here at WWF. I think has a real good heart. I really and truly do. So he'd be a kid that I certainly would like working with again at some point in his career, whether it be in front of the camera or behind the camera. In WCW, I've always been a big fan of Chris Benoit's work. I love his work ethic. I love his approach to the game and the business, and what he gives the fans night after night and what he wants to give. I think he's a great talent, and certainly Bill Goldberg has so much untapped potential that he and Benoit would be the two guys that I would could certainly have fun booking on house shows someday. And as far as watching the other shows, I try to watch ECW on Friday nights. I don't watch their syndicated show as much. It comes on at 1 a.m. and an old timer like me is usually in bed by then. And WCW, I don't watch it as much. I watch it on tape because on Mondays I'm working. I guess they're going to move Thunder to Wednesday if they haven't already.
Yeah, it starts this coming Wednesday will be the first time.
So, I may be able to check that out then. But other than that, it was like catching a tape when somebody have a tape in the office of a show and try to see what's going on. But, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't watch the competitors as much probably as I should. And that's not because of, I'd like to think not because of arrogance, but just because of time restraints.
Okay, let's go to Derek in Miami. Derek, what's going on?
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering how you guys felt about Rikishi Fatu and the response that he got.
Oh, yeah, you got a hell of a response the other night.
Yeah, on SmackDown.
On SmackDown, yeah.
Yeah, we're ecstatic about it. I mean, it's we've been thinking, and then Vince came up with this concept for Rikishi, and I think that there were a lot of folks in our company, and I'm not going to exclude yours truly, that rolled their eyes a little bit on this one when they heard the concept and how the guy was going to be dressed, because I was in the meetings on that thing from the get-go, and not that I'm trying to take credit for the concept. It was Vince's idea, but because I'm in charge of talent, I certainly met with the talent and Vince over the idea, and I just didn't know how well it would translate to the audience, and man, it didn't take too long when the music got put with the character, and the character did a little bit of charismatic movement, a little dancing and stuff. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm very happy. It gives us another player, because his match on SmackDown, I thought, elevated him a lot. I really and truly did.
Absolutely.
And you guys expect to get the reaction he got?
It's also a credit to our champion, I think. You look back on how Hunter had his a few weeks ago with Al Snow. That helped Al, in my view. I just think that you don't dance by yourself, but that was a great thing for our company Thursday night. Both those guys really stepped up, and it really helped Rikishi.
Did you guys expect it to go over as well as it did? Because the last 2-3 minutes of that match were, it was like the people took it seriously. I was surprised how well or how much that they were sitting there, on pins and needles for that title change. I thought, you almost would expect, just given that he hasn't had that much high profile experience, that people would, kind of maybe, say, okay, it's a good match, but we all know the title's not changing hands, and the audience reaction certainly didn't indicate that.
I think a lot of us just have underestimated how over that character is getting, and that's all I can figure. I mean, I knew that Batu would work hard, and I knew that he knew, because we discussed it with him, the opportunity that he had that night to really turn it on and show people what he could do. And I gave him a huge hug after it was over. That's the only way you can hug him, if you haven't noticed, is a huge hug. I thought he really rose to the occasion. I thought he really, really performed well and worked so hard. And, let's not forget, he's 400 pounds. But he didn't lay on his behind, He did a real good job. So I was, like I said, pleasantly surprised. And I'm really happy that I just hope that he can keep this momentum going, because if he can keep it pumped up a little bit more, he may surprise us all on where he might go.
It almost seemed from commentary like you guys are leading towards maybe a program down the road between the two.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Brian just thought that maybe by the commentary, he thought you're almost leading to a program with those two down the road.
Well, I think that in hindsight, you go into that on the front side hoping that that's where you can head and create another opponent for the champion to work with. I think when that show was over, we had no doubts in our mind, I certainly didn't, that in the near future, there's a possibility that we could have some main events in some markets, Rikishi versus Hunter, that might not do badly. I'm not talking about next week, but I'm talking about, in the not-too-distant future, if Thursday night's reaction is any indication as to what we're going to get, say, Monday in St. Louis or Tuesday in Chicago.
I want to get to this question before we go to the next call. What's your side of the story as it pertains to Jeff Jarrett and his departure from the World Wrestling Federation?
Well, I take responsibility for the interruption in the negotiation and the way that was handled. I mean, I'm the one that's in charge of that department, and I'm not going to pass the buck to anybody. I never have in the beginning. I wasn't set up to be somebody printed one time or said I was the scapegoat. I think that I'm taking responsibility because it's my job to get it done. I didn't get that job done. I'd like to think my track record on recruiting some guys in this roster and negotiations have been very favorable. We've won a whole lot more than we've lost. We haven't had too many guys leave our roster that we didn't want to leave to go elsewhere. So I think it was certainly the exception to the rule. But the decision was made late to retain Jeff's services, and he and I started negotiating very late prior to his contract expiring. Once that I was given the green light, and once I was given the green light, I didn't get a deal done. So I accept responsibility of it, and I wish it had been handled a lot more professionally on both parties' side. But I can't blame anybody but me because I had about a month to get the deal done, and I didn't get it handled. And whether or not Russo leaving and going down to Atlanta had an effect on the negotiations, yay or nay, it's certainly arguable, but that's just me making excuses, because the bottom line is I didn't get the deal done, and it's my responsibility to do so.
Let's go to Joe in Chicago. Joe, what's going on?
I'm not sure if this question was already asked, but The Rock mentioned in his Torch interview that Jericho came in with a lot of heat, and I was wondering why you think that was.
It's a lot of came in with what?
He said that Jericho came in with a lot of heat.
I didn't sense that. I mean, that may be Rock's opinion, and he's certainly welcome to it. And he looks at it from a different angle than I do, because he's one of the boys and he's in the locker room and I'm not. I didn't get that sense, but there could have been some trepidation there by some of the talents, because of the ballyhoo and the hype of Chris coming to our company. I think a lot of that has been erased. Chris Jericho is a fine person, and I'm not saying that because that's what I'm paid to do. I truly believe that. I think he's an excellent young man. I think that we've all from our front office side to his side, we've had some stutter steps growing with each other a little bit, but I don't look at that as anything but the course of doing business. I think that's just the way things are, because we had great expectations for him, and we still do. And I think that he's becoming one of our more significant baby faces. His merchandise, his Y2J shirt is the number 3 or number 4 selling item of all the items that we have that we're selling. And to me, that's tells me that his popularity is genuine if the customers are spending money on his merchandise. So again, my perspective of Chris's arrival would be different than Rock's. And I can see Rock's point of view, but in my point of view, I think it was a little bit. That's a little bit of an overstatement.
Joe, you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Quickly, if you could pick one wrestler from outside the states to bring it in and repackage any way you see fit, who would it be?
He's still giving a foreign wrestler.
A foreign wrestler. Well, I'll probably have to call Dave and get some suggestions on some good Japanese talent.
Yeah.
I don't know who would be out there, Dave. On a foreign, I mean, there's a lot of great. I'd love to have. What's the kid that I've talked about before? That's the champion over at New Japan. That kind of I've talked about him before, Dave. Kind of reminds me of Saito in his younger days.
Is it Hashimoto or ShowNo?
Yeah, Hashimoto.
Yeah.
I really like him. But I'm kind of a mark for those kind of guys. Yeah,
really tough, hard kicks and all that.
Yeah, I think he's
very believable style.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. What's this thing? We have a question here. Is what's the status as far as Deborah McMichael? And by the way, did they get married yet? Or do you even know?
No, they're not married. And Deborah's basically her situation is much like Steve's. She's kind of off right now until. She's making some personal appearances, doing some things of that nature, but she's essentially spending her time with Steve, and when we get a better sense of where we're headed with him after the surgery, I'm sure that her storyline will be addressed as well. So she's kind of on the back burner until after the surgery, and we get a little farther down the road.
Another thing, we actually have to start wrapping this thing up, but a lot of email questions regarding Jericho, who we just talked about. Is there any plans to elevate him to where he'd be working with more higher echelon people. I think, I don't know, to me, the China thing is sort of like, it's just like at best he's stagnant, and at worst I think it hurts him because, there's just a certain, the man versus woman thing, I think, in my opinion, because it's done so much, it's been done to death.
Mm-hmm. No,
a lot on their side too.
That's an arguable point of view, I think. But to answer your question directly, yes, we have a lot of plans to elevate Chris to another level, and we fully expect and are counting on him to work with those upper echelon guys in the very near future. I mean, it's going to be much sooner than later that he's going to be up on those cards. To me, it's just a matter of time, because we have every hope and every plan that he's going to be a featured performer, and I don't know why. I don't know what would keep him from that, quite frankly.
We have to wrap this up, and I want to apologize to everyone who sent in emails because we just didn't have the time to get to all of them, and we would certainly love to have Jim back anytime. I know he's got a really busy schedule, going on the road every week to do TV Monday and Tuesday, and then having to do his job, his front office work as well. So, Jim, I want to thank you very much for coming here while you were a little under the weather, and good luck at TV Monday and Tuesday. I think we'll hopefully have good TVs. Hope everybody will stay tuned, and it should be an interesting year. But I appreciate all the feedback and all the things the fans do for us, and I think we can never thank them enough for not only participating on this show, but watching our product and buying our pay-per-views and helping me fund my daughter's master's program. Do you ever think it was going to be this big? No. Yeah, neither did I. I'd like to be some visionary and say yes, but I think Vince did. I think Vince, quite frankly, saw this in his head all along. I didn't have that vision. I think Cowboy had a vision comparable to Vince's at one point, but I don't think anybody ever saw what Vince saw as far as where the business would go, as far as a public company and things of this nature. The marketing, like with a best-selling book and a top 10 record, and just there's so many things that have been going on in wrestling in the last, Governor in the last year and a half. Yeah, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And Rock's book is, I think, not this weekend, but next weekend will be in the New York Times top 10 bestseller list. If mixed books should still probably be there as well. That'll be an interesting top 10 list in a couple of weeks. And I guess the Rock book is just, as well as Mick book sold and is selling, the Rock's book in the early stages is even exceeding that. So it's been an amazing ride, and we just raised the bar. We've got to really start doing things. We got to continue to do better at the things we do, and hopefully we will. Okay, Jim, we're totally out of time. Thanks, Brian. Brian will be talking to you again on Monday, and we'll see everybody Monday.